Hello, interwebs, and welcome to Close Up. I'm your host, Joe.
And I'm Justin.
So, we're best friends, and it's about the time of our friendiversary, as we so call it. Yay. Around the time of this recording. It'll be about a month after by the time it's released. But, anyway, to celebrate our friendiversary, we compiled a rough list of our favorite friendships in media, some of which casually represent our friendship, others that just have meaning to us, or we can find some meaning in. Just celebration of friendship in general here. This is not going to be a detailed list per se of favorite moments or anything spoilerific that happens in all these, but they're from a wide variety of franchises. Maybe it'll interest you in some of them, or good chance you've seen at least some of them on this list, but it'll be a bit of a potpourri here today. We'll have more to say on things than others. It's going to be a long one. Probably not as long as the Spider-Man one. I can hope. I'll try to keep it a bit more condensed than that. Number 20, Sheppard and Garrus, Mass Effect. Who is one of the only companions who is in all three games, and who you will definitely pick for long stretches because the banter's great and he's a badass. I don't have a heck of a lot more to say, but it's just, Garrus and Sheppard are just...
It's a good one.
I just remember the vibes more from those games, that I just really like Garrus, and he was just fun.
Yeah.
He was fun to be around, and he was cool, and he killed things good.
Yeah, he was very useful.
Yeah, he wasn't a bad companion.
No, there are some of those.
Number 19, Woody and Buzz from Toy Story. They started off very interesting because they're built for completely different generations. Woody is a cowboy toy built for baby boomers, and Buzz is a space-age toy for millennials.
Well, and Woody is like a limited kind of collector's thing, right? It didn't have as big of a run, and then Buzz is like mass-produced.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. There's the whole Woody's Roundup vibe was a bit more low-key.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's fewer people who would collect this.
Yeah.
Than a Buzz Lightyear, where like in the sequel you go and there's a whole shelf full of Buzz Lightyears.
Just rows upon rows. Whereas
also in that, actually that's pretty interesting, because in the second one, there's all those rows and rows of Buzz Lightyears, but meanwhile the parallel story is this collector who's desperately trying to find the Woody's Roundup dolls. And like this is the first Woody he could find in a very long time. I never thought about that for Toy Story 2. That it's very much a mass market versus specialty sort of toy. But their friendship was very good in the first one, especially when they were more enemies. I liked that they only found their path to friendship by mutually overcoming their own egos. Buzz had to realize that he wasn't actually a spacefaring adventurer of some importance, and Woody had to realize that he might not always be the favorite toy, but they had to unite with their mutual purpose of keeping their child happy. That's what they both want to do at the end, and in the sequels, that's the lengths they will go to make Andy happy and give their kid a good childhood. And that is where their mutual goals come into play. They're a great duo there. Number 18, I haven't seen the ending of this, so it might go very poorly, and that's true of a few things on this list. But up till season 4, I'm putting Chuck Bartowski and Morgan Grimes at number 18.
That's a good one. Yeah.
They're both a bit childish, but they will do anything for each other. Their friendship extends all the way back to their childhoods, and it's to the point where we can finish each other's sentences sort of friendship. Chuck is not even the most grounded personality on the show, but he's the grounded one in that relationship. Whereas Morgan takes everything with this heightened seriousness.
Yeah.
everything from buy more drama to petty relationship stuff to even like one-off things like, oh, Sarah said this. Oh, Chuck, you know what that means? That's terrible. Like that's how he is.
I just like that even as the show gets bigger and Chuck is doing like bigger and better things, he's still got time for his friend. He still makes time for him.
Yeah.
For the most part.
And I also like how it drags Morgan into better things as the series goes as well.
Yeah.
Morgan, in many ways, up to where I am, has matured more than Chuck at this point. Like, I'm in season 4 and Chuck still spends most of his time whining about Sarah, whereas Morgan is like, he's moved up in the world a little bit. Morgan is a far cry from where he was at the start of the series, but he's still just as loyal. He still helps Chuck out in every way he can. Like, Morgan's help has gotten more useful through the series, and Chuck is kind of stagnated, but
Chuck's still helpless.
Yeah. But they're still close. It's that kind of friendship that, like, we've been friends forever. We're going to be friends forever. Barring that I haven't seen the ending. I don't know about that, but it probably. Number 17, Oliver Queen and John Diggle from Arrow. Now, this one was another one with a really good beginning where the Queen family hired John Diggle to be Oliver's bodyguard, but Oliver kept slipping away from him and basically ditching his tail. But I like how that beginning set the foundation for their relationship, because throughout all 8 seasons of Arrow and all the other spin-offs and every time they're together, Diggle never lost that fundamental protective streak of Oliver, even when he realized who Oliver was, and that he was the Green Arrow and he's a vigilante and he can definitely take care of himself. Diggle never stopped trying to protect him, especially from himself, because Oliver's own egotistical tendencies tended to get in the way of his personal development and sometimes even in the way of his own mission. But Diggle was always the sober voice of reason on that show. And he was, once again, Oliver is a very egotistical person, but Diggle's the only person he would actually listen when he gave advice a lot of times. I also appreciate that friendship because it worked the other way, where Diggle is a very cautious person, very much, I don't really know if we should be doing this or taking these kind of risks, and Oliver dragged him out of his comfort zone, dragged him just from being the cool-headed guy into a vigilante on his own. He dragged him into becoming Spartan and becoming a hero in his own right, like actually putting those ideals into action. So Oliver inspired him to action, and he tempered Oliver's more destructive tendencies throughout. Number 16, the Doctor and Donna Noble. Now, this one's kind of weird because a lot of these are over a very long period of time, but the Doctor and Donna Noble were really just in a comparatively short run. They were just one season of TV, but they're very iconic. Because even though Doctor Who's been on for 60 years at this point, very few of his companions have ever challenged him like Donna Noble. She is just a firecracker in the TARDIS. She's constantly questioning his every move and just generally being a nuisance to him. And at first, she's incredibly selfish and grating. And he's like, why am I even traveling with this woman? She's awful. She's terrible. But they really start to rub off on each other later on, where seeing the Doctor's heroism, she probably goes through one of the most complete arcs of any companion, who most of which started off as good people and ended up becoming great people, where she started off as kind of a lowlife and ended up becoming somebody great. She had the widest arc of most companions in the last 60 years that I've seen. And she in turn also was a breath of fresh air, because the last few seasons up to that point had been will they, won't they relationships in the TARDIS. And then she comes in with zero sexual chemistry whatsoever with David Tennant, and it was a breath of fresh air. They're like, wow, these guys are just like, they just have great chemistry, but there's no sexual tension whatsoever. It's just pure banter and good times. And there's one episode where one of the aliens talks about, I think it's a prophecy of some kind. It's a long time ago. I don't remember. But they mention Dr. Donna, kind of like combining their names, Dr. Donna. And that's still kind of how I see them, Dr. Donna. They're kind of an inseparable pair. It's very, like, even recently when they brought back David Tennant for those 3 Doctor Who specials before Ncuti Godwa's first season, they brought back Catherine Tate as Donna Noble as well. They brought back that pairing for a series of episodes because it was kind of the show at its peak.
Yeah, she was that important to it that she had to come as well.
Yeah, it never really got better than David Tennant and Catherine Tate together. That was one of the best runs of the show in its 60-year history, was these two together. So number 15, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Will Smith and Carlton Banks. They appeal to me because they come from vastly different upbringings. Will comes from the projects of Philadelphia, and Carlton comes from the bougie, rich area of Bel-Air. They have completely different worldviews because of where they're from. Carlton knows nothing about how quote-unquote real people live, and Will doesn't know anything about the finer details of how to live in high society. So over time, they really help each other grow as people. Will gives Carlton the wider perspective of the world, and Carlton helps Will become, kind of stands off his edges a little bit and makes him a more well-rounded human being who has that worldliness about him from a hard upbringing, but also can talk to society people as well and not be instantly kicked out like Jeff is of the mansion usually. Yeah, they offer each other some eye-opening experiences about how the other half lives.
Well, and that's a core element to the show too, right?
Yeah, he's coming from a vastly different experience, but I think that really is the whole point of the show, but it mostly comes to fruition through his relationship with Carlton. They're the same age and they spend more time together than basically anybody else, besides the fact that Alfonso Ribeiro is hilarious and plays off with Will Smith very well. They're dynamic. And he's also probably the most uptight person in the entire family as well. Like, they're all rich people. But if you really think about it, you know, like Aunt and Uncle Viv, right? Aunt Viv and Uncle Phil, they grew up poor as well. So despite having money and position, they also in the back of their minds have that hard life upbringing when they can remember when they were poor people. But the kids never had that. Like, Ashley's still young enough that she can kind of be molded in a way to kind of understand things a little more innately. And Hillary's just like airheaded heiress who just likes experiencing the world. But Carlton's a pretty smart guy and just like so uptight and has horse blinders on with the world. He really has no idea what goes on outside of high society culture. And Will is just massive culture shock for him specifically. Just like Will's like, how are guys like this even exist? Like, you wouldn't last 2 minutes in my neighborhood, man. Where I grew up, you'd be beaten. Number 14, Liz Lemon and Jack Donaghy from 30 Rock. They are another very fun relationship because she is perennially a mess. She's just kind of a basket case all over. Tina Fey plays her so just always flustered and never winning ever. Like, life is always hard for Liz Lemon. Jack Donaghy, meanwhile, is always put together. He's always in the nice suits. He's always got super chill attitude about everything. He's very rarely flustered. So when you put these two together, where she's always flustered and he's never, they just have a very interesting dynamic. He's kind of a mentor figure to her and wins most of their arguments, but she also gives him new experiences to think about. She kind of inspires him to think differently about the world, whereas he and his very ordered worldview help her put some things in her life in order week over week. So he kind of helps her get her life together, and she sort of helps him see different perspectives on things. Because usually he surrounds himself with, other rich businessmen, Republican types, not necessarily great people, but, they're his friends. They're the people he likes. And then you have Liz Lemon, who's this super liberal, feminist, idealist person. And like, she couldn't be more different than the people he hangs out with usually. So they have a lot of culture clash together and they argue all the time, but they also have a great chemistry. And at the end of the day, their mutual respect is what's really important with them, because he's her boss. So, she always has to kind of walk on eggshells just a little bit, but also like they mutually want to help each other and they do care about one another. Number 13, SpongeBob SquarePants and Patrick Starr. These two childlike idiots are just endearing. They'll go jellyfishing and wind up on weird adventures. This one I do think is a little bit tragic, though, in a way, where I was just thinking about this today, where if you think about the dynamic of this relationship, SpongeBob is nearly being held back by Patrick, because he's trying to be a responsible adult. Oh, I have a pet that I take care of. I have a regular job that I go to, and Patrick's just this lazy loser who just lives under his rock all day and
literally lives under a rock
and waits for SpongeBob to go jellyfishing or whatever. He kind of brings out the worst in SpongeBob.
Yeah, I guess.
Whenever Patrick's around, SpongeBob becomes a way less mature version of himself. But they're also still kind of like, they kind of have this childlike, endearing quality when they're together. They're very imaginative, and like in a way, he keeps SpongeBob from becoming a cynical person like Squidward, which is where I think that's the good part of their relationship, is he keeps SpongeBob childlike and sees the fun in the world still. And I don't know where Patrick would be without SpongeBob to kind of temper his stupider impulses. But they're good together. Number 12, Han and Chewie, Star Wars. Best tag team pilots in the galaxy. You got the guy who made the Kessel run in less than 12 parsecs and his co-pilot, in which...
The hairy friend.
Yeah, but would you have any other way?
No.
You wouldn't pick a different co-pilot.
It's suiting.
Chewbacca's the guy. And this is, to me, my preferred version of, like Groot and Rocket made the list, but this is like...
It's the same relationship,
same
but
kind
better.
of thing. Yeah, where like he's the only one who really understands Chewie. And except we as the audience also understand Chewie very well from out the gate, because he's very...
Expressive.
Yeah, expressive physically.
That's why I choose to ignore that Solo said that he just speaks Wookiee.
Yeah.
Because he gets what Chewie's saying just from being around him so much that he just knows. He just knows what he's saying.
Fair point.
They're on the same track.
I also think one of the things these guys have over basically everybody else on this list is longevity. We've seen these guys grow into old age together. And like, even when this, spoilers for episode 7, but even when Han left Leia in between 6 and 7, he was still with Chewie.
He never left Chewie.
He never left Chewie. He abandoned his son. He abandoned his wife. He never abandoned Chewie. And that's friendship.
Wow. And even with Han being that shitty, Chewie's like, somebody's got to go with him.
Pretty much, yeah. Chewie was always the loyal companion. Han was more the leader between the two, but Chewie was always up for adventure. And, he was the muscle who could pull them out of trouble. Or intimidate their way out of trouble.
Yeah, he really does get them through some sticky situations.
Yeah, I don't know where Chewie would be without Han. I think even in the old backstory, Han saved his life at a point and probably would have been killed in the camps of Kashyyyk. But otherwise, Han would be dead many times over without Chewie. Both as his co-pilot and as his big friend. So, yeah. Number 11, Bruce Wayne and James Gordon. Now, I could have made a couple pairings for Bruce Wayne. Clark Kent comes to mind as Batman, Superman, World's Finest. They have their own comic series, long running for 60 years. Batman and Superman are best friends. But I'm going with Gordon. And I think this one is especially... You could argue this one for Gordon especially, because if you think back to Batman, Detective Comics number 27, the very, very first appearance of Batman, panel 1, you see the title, Batman. Panel 1, it's Bruce Wayne sitting across from James Gordon in his office.
Yeah.
The first time we ever see Bruce Wayne, he's sharing a panel with James Gordon. The very first appearance of Batman ever, it was those two from panel 1, and they're still just as important to team up 80 years later.
No, I see it. Even though through some depictions they've had their clashes and stuff.
Yeah.
They're still, I see it. I see the friendship. I see it there.
Like, I don't know exactly how many more issues it took to get Robin or the Joker or any of the other iconography with Batman, but Gordon was there right from the start and has never left for any length of time. Every adaptation of Batman, not even all of them have had a Robin or any of those really important things that you associate, but everyone has had a Gordon. For every Batman, there's an Alfred and a Gordon, but I'm focusing on Gordon.
Yeah, I guess so.
They are the ones who clean up Gotham together. He is Batman's chief partner in his crusade.
They're opposite sides of the same coin, basically.
Yes.
He's on the legal side, and he's on the everything else that isn't in your jurisdiction.
And that's why I really appreciate stories like Batman Year One, which put them at parallel to each other, where Gordon's this young up-and-coming cop who's in a system that's all the police brass are basically run by the mob, or they're very easily paid off. And then you have Bruce Wayne, who doesn't really know how to execute his mission quite yet. And then it's really only in the end when they finally come together of, okay, well, to clean up the police, I might need to go a little bit outside the law and be a little bit sketchy about this. And to do my mission effectively, I might need some help from within the law to pull it off. So within a corrupt system, they really only work together to clean up the institutions of Gotham and then later all the crime within it. Like, and I know it's very controversial sometimes in world that Gordon's got a light directly to Batman, but like, think about that really, if you put that into context. And the entire DC universe, I don't think even the Justice League has a light they can just call Batman. I'm sure they have like radios or something, but the bat signal is iconic, and that's Gordon's thing.
And he always shows up.
And he always shows up. And he always leaves when his back is turned, but that's a different story. They have some fun with their dynamic there, but they really need each other for the mission to come to fruition. Number 10, Fox Mulder and Dana Scully. The X-Files, with a hyphen, not a dot. That's our thing. I appreciate Fox Mulder and Dana Scully because they are fighting for the same goals, but have vastly different approaches. They're famously categorized as the skeptic and the believer, an iconic pairing. Mulder always wore his heart on his sleeve. He was never shy about being the passionate weirdo between the two. But she was the one who really made things come together, because even though she never believed him, she always cared. When Mulder was in trouble, she was always his number one backup. She always supported him, even though she didn't really buy into it. She's like, okay, well, it's probably not a monster, but it is something. And we're going to figure that out. Even though she never saw anything, she was always conveniently gone every single time. She kind of thought he was crazy, even though later on she's like, okay, well, it's hard to deny there's some conspiracy going on, but like, okay. Anyway, they always work together in spite of their consistent and ongoing differences for many years. And I think they're a prime example of a friendship where I strongly disagree with you, but I can still be close with you anyway. They disagree on a great many things. They're very different kinds of people, really, but their chemistry is there, and they both accomplish their mutual goals together through good teamwork and cooperation, even if they disagree with each other's methods. Got 7 good years of them together before it started, branching off.
When their friendship was not in the show was no good anymore.
Exactly. The X-Files was Mulder and Scully. Season 8 and 9, like, it was still there, but it wasn't the same without them. They were the heart of it. Number 9, Chandler Bing and Joey Tribbiani from that show. Which name? I forget. Something about Friends. Something about Friends.
No, that's a hard one.
Yeah. On this list about Friends, I can't think of the name. I don't know.
It's too bad.
I'm not being sarcastic at all. So, Chandler Bing and Joey Tribbiani, they're just sort of goofy 20-something guys who casually accept each other's flaws. But I also appreciate how realistic the blind spots they have are for each other. The one I was thinking of in particular was Joey doesn't know Chandler's job. Like, none of them do, but
Joey doesn't. He lived with him for how long?
He lived with him for so many years and, like, still doesn't know. And I think that's very realistic for male friendships. Even people who've known each other forever still don't know things. Like, I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but if you were to I've known you for 13 years, and if you were to ask me something, like, very obvious about,
I guarantee there's something.
There's something very obvious I'm probably missing.
That other people will be like, how do you not know that?
Yeah, and I'm just like, oh, I've known him for 13. Like, I read stories online sometimes of guys who are like, oh yeah, I've had friendships where I've known them for like a decade and I don't even know their name.
I don't know your real name.
Yeah, I don't know your name.
Just always call him pal.
Yeah, like, those stories are more common than you think. And even though Joey and Chandler aren't that bad, I think they are a good depiction of guys in their 20s. They're, like, most of the time they're just kind of having fun. They're kind of chill. There's not really much drama between them that they don't resolve within 20 minutes.
And it's also cool seeing their dynamic change over the course of, like, Chandler's life changes a lot throughout the series, and
Joey's stays pretty stagnant.
Yeah. But you still see their relation. You see their relationship throughout, which is cool.
Yeah,
it evolves.
Yeah, this is a good example of their lives move in different directions, but their dynamic still needs to be honed. And like even when they weren't living together anymore, I think that was a big turning point in their relationship, but it never changed their dynamic.
It helps that they just live across the hall.
Yeah, I mean, they still saw each other all the time, but it was also, okay, well, now that you're gone, what's next? You know, less, I don't know, screwing around like they did before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, number 8 from Star Trek, again, Lower Decks. Beckett Mariner and Bradward Boimler. So this dynamic is basically, she's one of Starfleet's biggest rule breakers, and he's one of its biggest nerds. And she's nearly like an older sister to him. Because her whole thing, I probably have to explain this because Lower Decks is one of the most niche things on this whole list. And I have another one later on in my top 2, made 2 in my top 10. But so basically she is the daughter of an admiral, and she was an officer at one point, but she breaks the rules so often and has such a flagrant disregard for authority that she was busted down to Lower Decks. But she doesn't care because she's like, I like it better here anyway. I don't like the responsibility or dealing with the pompous commanders. I get more freedom to just do my own thing, my own way down here. But he's the exact opposite. He's like, no, I want to be a commander. I'm following the rules to the T, do everything exactly the way I need to do to get up to my path to captaincy. So they're incredibly opposite. But the problem is her rule breaking drags him into all manner of situations which might be disastrous for his career. And he's just like, you really shouldn't be doing that. But, you know, out of loyalty for our friendship, I will have to help you out of these things. But he has serious anxiety problems. So everything she does nearly puts him into a full-on panic attack. Basically, every episode she drags him somewhere he wants no business being. But that's the thing, is it does end up kind of helping him later, because after she puts him through so many stressful situations, he learns how to be cooler under pressure and starts developing the characteristics of a good commander.
Oh, I was gonna say, it sounds like something you need to be to be a commander on Star Trek, basically.
Yeah, having her for a best friend teed him up to be a great commander. And meanwhile, having him for a best friend kind of tempered her wild side a little bit more, made her think a little bit more critically about things and, you know, take a breath before I jump into something. So they tempered each other out with a, you know, he made her a little bit more responsible, and she taught him to be a little more loose sometimes and go with the flow a bit more, and also how to be cool under pressure.
Mm.
So they helped each other grow quite a lot. Number 7, Anakin Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Mentor, brother, mortal enemy. The friendship between these guys is mired in tragedy from the very start. And that's what's very interesting about it, is we know right from the first time Obi-Wan ever talked to him that, at least from his perspective, he's dead to him. Or killed by Darth Vader. It's like, and then you get to the prequels where you actually see their relationship play out, and it's unlike every other one on this list. You know what's going to happen to them in advance. So really, I'm not even going to count the prequels as heavily. I'm weighting this more towards the Clone Wars TV show.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
Like, the prequels are definitely integral. They're kind of the structure it's built around. But when I'm talking about this best friendship and putting it so high on my list, it's not just from the movies. It's from the Clone Wars and then basically the payoff of it in Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
Because they play very well off each other, because Anakin, in the Clone Wars especially, is a young, cocky glory hound who breaks all the rules and finds success, whereas Obi-Wan adheres to the dogma of the Jedi Order and does things more by the book, which always puts him in comical opposition. So kind of a similar dynamic to Mariner and Boimler. And I like that he half pretends to be bothered by Anakin, but he's also half actually horrified at the things Anakin pulled off. He's like, what? Oh no. That's, wow. But I also enjoy that Obi-Wan staunchly defends Anakin at all turns. He pleads his case with the council multiple times. He covers for him. He doesn't encourage him, but he does give him props for a job well done and shakes his head about it. But he's like, no, you did it. And that's like good. And he gives him the benefit of the doubt as well. He doesn't like his crazy plans, but he lets them play out. He doesn't try to stop him, usually. Mm-hmm. He just advises against it. And at the end of the day, Obi-Wan loves him dearly. They save each other's lives consistently. And he reciprocates, because, even right in the end, after he kills Dooku, he carries Obi-Wan out on his back and could have left him to die there, but Anakin's the same way. He does appreciate Obi-Wan's wisdom and that Obi-Wan does think things through a little bit more. And like there were a couple times where Anakin got caught up in his own plans and didn't think things through all the way. He's a great improviser, but Obi-Wan came up with the plan that he kind of ripped on.
Yeah.
Like Anakin did best when there was a plan, and then he started improvising. And Obi-Wan was the guy that laid the structure.
And then freaks out when the plan goes not the plan.
Yes.
And it's one of the only ones, like even on this list, that we've seen the very beginning to the absolute end.
Yes, we saw them from the time Anakin was 9 years old.
Literally the moment they met to the moment Obi-Wan dies, and that's it. Like, that's as far as you can say their relationship went.
It's also very intriguing for the very first time we see them being the end of it. Where without any context, you see Darth Vader and Obi-Wan face off, and yes, when I left you, I was the learner. Now I am the master. We're squaring off, and he kills him first time, and then we have all this buildup of the very first time they met, and
yeah, we watched them kill each other first.
Yeah, and leading up to that death scene, and we even go beyond that, get to Return of the Jedi, and the last shot of the movie, both of them in the afterlife stamped side by side.
That's true.
Like this relationship we covered, one of them was a child, and we go up to their afterlives. Like this one's pretty thorough in terms of mythological covering. Number 6, from Parks and Recreation, Ben Wyatt and Chris Traeger. This is the friendship which a lot of people credit with saving Parks and Recreation. Effectively, they both replaced this one character named Mark, who was a love interest for Leslie, and like he was just generally accepted to be kind of boring and didn't kind of brought down the mood a little bit. And then you bring in Adam Scott and Rob Lowe, and the vibe just totally changed. And Parks and Rec from season 3 was like firing on all cylinders. Because they brought in nearly as characters who, like, they're nearly antagonists when they're brought in. They're kind of a joint team. If I recall, they're basically, they work for the government, and they go to these municipal offices and basically tell them their budgets are cut. But Chris is like the most upbeat person in the world. He's like super athletic and physically fit, and he's very positive. Like every single time you see him, he's got a big smile on his face. He's like the happiest guy ever, always radiating positive energy. And Ben is more pragmatic and realistic and kind of anxious all the time and doesn't like talking. He's not very sociable. He's not great with people. So basically their tag team, when they were brought in, they're always kind of the 1-2 punch. Ben's the guy who delivers the bad news, and Chris's positivity softens it, softens the blow for everybody. So they have this good cop, bad cop dynamic everywhere they go. And that's how they're introduced on the show. And you're like, oh, they're just these bad government agent guys who were coming in to tell them their budgets are being cut. And then they actually stuck around for the rest of the show and became prominent members of the cast. And they're just great together because, you'd expect like Ben's cynical energy to maybe drag Chris down, but Chris is always the height of positivity, no matter what. He kind of lightens up Ben's spirits, but never gets brought down by Ben himself. They always manage to lift each other up. He kind of prods Ben out of his depressive mindsets, and Ben offers. He's kind of the harsh truth guy because, Chris is like, he's always so positive that he never likes delivering the bad news, and he nearly like skirts around bad things just to kind of, that's, like it's happening, but I'm not going to talk about it or think about it. That's Ben's job. Ben does the real stuff, basically, so I don't have to. So they make up each other's flaws very well. Number 5, Troy Barnes and Abed Nadir. Community. Troy and Abed in the morning. And this is one of those cases where, spoilers for Community Season 5, the ending, but this friendship breaks up in the show when Troy is written out.
Well, it doesn't break up, they're just separated.
They're separated, but it fundamentally hurts the show.
Yeah, it almost kills it.
It basically kills Abed's arc dead in the water.
It really shows that those two characters, like, they worked together, and separate didn't work.
Abed was still good, but it was night and day without Troy.
Yeah.
I think at the beginning, what really solidified these two together was the fact that they were nearly both closeted nerds. Not that Abed was closeted per se, but he was very, I'd say they repressed. Because Abed's father was very, like, oh, what are you getting into film anyway? Why don't you do more practical things? He kind of like never encouraged that side of his son. And Troy was the
football guy.
He was the football guy, too afraid to look like a nerd or be sensitive or anything. And then when these two finally met, they just brought out all the nerdy eccentricities in each other that they never felt they were allowed to express with other people as openly. And it just led to this beautiful dynamic where they're always encouraging, always super positive around each other. Although I feel like even in these relationships, there always needs to be the more grounded one, is what I'm seeing as a pattern on this list.
Mm-hmm.
Troy is the one who, like, hey, he can be super fun with Abed, but also he can get into serious relationships with women. He can be an adult and grow a little bit.
Yeah.
Whereas Abed is always more in that fantastical world. Abed struggles to, like, Abed has relationships too, but there's always this layer of irony on them.
Yeah.
That, like, it's nearly like Abed's doing it for the bit, but Troy can actually...
He is doing it for the bit. He's always doing it for the bit.
Yeah, but Troy can actually just express his emotions.
And I guess that's the part that sucks about it, is that he outgrows Abed, basically.
In a way, yeah. He figures out how to express himself healthily, and he can be the sensitive guy who's also a nerd and a jock, whereas Abed is always going to have some level of delusion, but Abed does grow in a way that he's able to fit in a little bit better. Abed can kind of just fit in better without being like as blatantly, oh, that weirdo. Troy kind of teaches him that. So going back to Parks and Recreation, the other one is Leslie Knope and Ann Perkins. This is another complement of energies where Ann is a very reserved person and plays life relatively safe, while Leslie is boisterous and continually campaigning for her ideas. And Leslie is instrumental in bringing Anne out of her shell and into public service, while Anne is a safe space for Leslie when the world's cynicism proves very difficult to overcome. Leslie is one of the most optimistic characters in TV history. She really believes she can turn this crappy small town into something she really believes it is a great town underneath, kind of its sucky populace. But she thinks she can make this town great. And she's met with opposition all the time. Even for things that should be objectively good ideas, she gets fought at every turn. And Anne is always there to be like, yeah, okay, kind of temper her a little bit and help her through the tough times. And, Leslie, their relationship is always really funny because Leslie has just this unadulterated appreciation for Anne, and she's like always complimenting her to excess. She's always saying like how pretty Anne is or how intelligent she is. She's always like, it nearly seems like she has a crush on her, and she might, I don't know, but it's just funny how excessive it is. But she's like the most supportive friend ever. Heading down to 3, 2, 1. Number 3, Sam Rutherford and Devon Atindi from Star Trek Lower Decks. These two, I don't have a heck of a lot to say despite them being so high up, but basically they're here because they're just the most delightful pairing I've seen on this list. They just make me really happy to see together, because the funny thing about them is that they're both on Lower Decks. They both have the tragic backstories of the group. Like Mariner and Boimler are the two main characters, and their backstories are like, yeah, we got stuff. But Tendi and Rutherford are actually kind of dark and sad sometimes. But they're the most optimistic characters on the whole show. And like, these are people that complete each other's sentences, and they're just like massive nerds. Like, she's in medical division, he's an engineer, and literally everything they do together is just gleeful all the time. And there's definitely a romantic tension between them that like barely goes acknowledged in the show. I haven't finished the last season, so I don't know if that does get resolved, but they're just so fun to watch. That's the point to make with them. It's friendship that's like, it's also based on a mutual respect. They're just like, they love all the same things, and they're just so alike as human beings that it's just an infectious energy. We're like, wow, this person is like, these two are perfect for each other, even if it's not like a dating scenario. They're just like, how could you ever get tired of someone in company like this when you're that compatible? Mm-hmm. Another Star Trek for number 2, because Star Trek is the best franchise for friendships, as I've determined, totally objectively. Captain James T. Kirk and Mr. Spock, also known as the original fanfictions. That is a pretty noted thing, is fanfictions weren't so much a thing before Kirk and Spock, but were very much a thing after Kirk and Spock. It's another case of complementing energies here. Kirk is outgoing and driven by passion, while Spock is understated and driven by logic. But Kirk respects and requires logical counsel, while Spock must learn to incorporate some passion into life. And spoilers for Wrath of Khan, 40 years late, but I'm going to tell you anyway. Don't worry, it gets retconned in the next movie. But few scenes in cinema move me more than Spock's death and funeral, where Kirk witnesses his friend's sacrifice, and it's not even a big scene. Like, you think, at this point, these characters have been on screen together for 20 years, and you've seen them go through a lot together. But even in this scene where Spock is dying, it's not like a no sort of situation. It's like, He's dying of radiation poisoning. He adjusts his suit and respect when the captain comes by. And they both kind of slip down the glass together as Spock loses his energy and the life drains out of him. And they just have this last conversation. Put their hands on the glass together, and William Shatner just lets out that he barely has the energy to say no. Just.
Yeah, it's not high energy, it's low energy. But
Yeah.
it's still powerful at the same time.
Yeah, these are middle-aged men who you've seen their friendship develop over a very, very long time. And then you see them die, and you feel the power of that moment, and it's the most emotional scene in the entire Star Trek canon. The moment Spock died, and he got revived, but like it doesn't diminish the power of the scene. And then the funeral where he gets to eulogize him. I don't think any of the other ones on this list have had an opportunity for a eulogy like that, where where the one guy really gets to say what the other one meant to him.
Mm-hmm.
And to see William Shatner break down during that speech, very powerful stuff. They're also one of the most adapted friendships as well. Think about, how long we saw Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner play those characters. We saw them do it for 30 years, just about. We saw Leonard Nimoy keep going, but then we got Zachary Quinto and Chris Pine. They did it for a long time. Now we have Paul Wesley and Ethan Peck doing this dynamic. So we have, like, we saw them in the J.J. Abrams movies. We saw them in their Academy years together. In Strange New Worlds, we're seeing the beginning of their friendship in the main timeline. With the originals, we saw what they did in their mission years together and in their middle-aged years together. This is one of the few on this list where we see them over decades in multiple iterations. See how long this friendship lasted. And number one is Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. I'm going to put a parenthesis in here and say specifically my favorite is Cumberbatch and Freeman.
Yeah.
Not because, look, this is another case of, as I was just saying, I feel like Sherlock Holmes and Watson are the most adapted friendship in the 20th and 21st century.
Even before then.
Yeah, I'm trying not to include Shakespeare plays that have probably had maybe good friends in them and have run for centuries or whatever, but like they are one of the most adapted friendships of all time, and I think very hard to argue, probably top 2 or 3 in the 20th and 21st century. Actually, I think I did read at one point that Sherlock Holmes was the most adapted film character.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Which by default means Watson is too. And that friendship is... So, yeah, it's a recurring one in our culture. We have all seen many different versions of it. But I think the reason Cumberbatch and Freeman are my favorite is because oftentimes, no offense to them, but the Watsons are usually the weaker of the two.
Which I don't know why they do that.
The Sherlock usually gets a very memorable actor, and the Watson usually less so. Freeman was the most memorable Watson I've ever seen. Even my favorite version, it's not even my favorite version of Sherlock Holmes. My favorite version of Sherlock Holmes is The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes with, why can't I remember his name right now? In the 80s. Anyway, he's the best one, and I think it's Jeremy Brett. I might be getting him mixed up, but he's the best one, and even he had a Watson who was recast halfway through that show.
Ooh.
That's the best adaptation of they basically did every one of the short stories, and he was so good. Mm-hmm. But even that couldn't keep a consistent Watson. But just in general, this friendship is the best. Because even if the Watsons are a little bit weaker, it's just the dynamic that's the star. It's this, it's this introverted drug addict genius and his more sociable doctor friend of above average intelligence. Like, Watson's not dumb.
But Sherlock makes him look dumb.
Yeah, but Sherlock makes everybody look dumb, but you gotta consider that Watson's smart enough to be worth this guy's time.
Mm-hmm. He thinks Watson can follow.
Or follow
enough
that you're like, yeah, that I'm not just, you're not so dumb I'm not gonna waste my time with you. Like he tends to treat most people.
Mm-hmm.
He treats most people like an afterthought, but actually sees value in his relationship with Watson. And I think that's also because Watson offers him a perspective that he doesn't normally see. Sherlock is not very good with people. He is very cold and emotionally distant, and Watson offers him different perspectives on things. Sherlock understands the science very well, but a little bit less about the human heart. And Watson offers him a layman's perspective. Or at the very least, just gives him someone to bounce his ideas off of as a sounding board or a sidekick to, hey, you go here and cause a distraction while I do something else. And Watson is always game for whatever they're doing. He's very loyal. He's the chronicler. He, in universe and in real life, he builds up the legend of Sherlock Holmes. And he's maybe an unreliable narrator, but, he's the one who tells all these stories. Which sometimes Sherlock likes it and sometimes he doesn't. I feel like I've seen before where it's like, okay, well, you have gotten me a lot of business. But Sherlock has also mentioned multiple times, if I recall, that it's like, well, you kind of oversell some things and you romanticize it, but whatever. Like, he does read the stories. Doesn't always approve, but it's pretty funny. Another thing I think is interesting about these two is that people often forget in the general public consciousness that Watson was married for a lot of those early books.
Yes, he was.
Like the majority of them, I feel like he was a married man not living at 221B. But people tend to think, when they think Sherlock Holmes, they think of these two bachelors living at 221B and solving mysteries together.
Mm-hmm.
It's just funny that even in the greater public consciousness, people imagine them together when really they were living apart for most of the old stories.
Yep.
That's just how inseparable they are in the public consciousness, that it's the collective imagination is overwritten what was actually the source material. We just imagine them together always, even though they really weren't. Yeah. So I think one big trend on this list is a lot of these characters I feel like are very hard to imagine without the other. Basically anyone on this list I can say, and you'd be hard pressed not to say the other name. Just picking a random R2D2 and C3PO. Tonto and the Lone Ranger. Fox Mulder and Dana Scully. Chandler and Joey. Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Yeah, it's hard.
Troy and Abed. Yeah.
They're iconic pairings, basically.
Yeah. So that's our totally objective list of best friendships and stuff. Happy early friendiversary as we recorded, belated.
Late to the audience, early for us.
Yeah.
On time, never.
Yeah. So where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram at jchurchtpm.
And you can find me on Instagram at ThoughtPlaneMedia. And check out thoughtplane.ca for everything else we do. There's hundreds of posts there for free. And you can donate $1 or $2 there if you like our work and you're feeling generous. We hope to see you on the next close-up. Till next time.